Aard, welcome to the Vienna Institute for Global Studies.
Well, thank you, Zoltán. It's an honor to be here.
And we've just had this workshop on entrepreneurial support organizations, which is part, we think, right, of the broader institutional structure of how entrepreneurial organizations fit into society and how they influence the growth and success of entrepreneurship within a country and globally. Now, you're a professor at University of Groningen in the Netherlands, and the Netherlands has a fairly successful record in business.
Mm-hmm.
Like major corporations, successful innovations, good technologies. And we used to always have this debate whether the Netherlands is an entrepreneurial country.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this Global Entrepreneurship Index for years when I was at the London School of Economics. And I remember we were asked to write a report on the Netherlands with Zoltán Ács at LSE. And we wrote that, and we went and presented it in The Hague, I believe, to the ministers. It was a big meeting. There was probably 300 people there, the press. And one of the things we found in this, and we found this in almost every country, that agency and institutions are both important. And in some countries, entrepreneurship is well developed and agency is well developed, institutions are not. And in some countries, it's the opposite. And one of the things we found in the Netherlands that was common in most of Europe was that the institutions were very strong, but there was not that much of an interest on the part of individuals to be entrepreneurs. And someone said to me at that meeting, well, if you want to work for a big organization, you go to Philips or some other big organization. And if you want to have a lifestyle business, then you create something small to satisfy your own income and wealth. What are your thoughts on this question of how entrepreneurial are the Dutch people in general and the Dutch as a country?
Yeah, well, if you take an historical perspective, so the Netherlands was also the first country who had a stock exchange in 1600 something. And that was for to finance the travels to what is now known as Indonesia.
That's right.
And so on. India, Korea, Japan. Dutch people were everywhere actually in that time. So I think you could say, looking back at that time, that in the gene population that there were certainly entrepreneurial seeds. And of course, the Netherlands is a small country. At the end of a few big rivers, the Rhine and the Maas, I think it's called in English, Maas in Dutch, and that's a situation where people also a lot of went out, and so that the outward trade orientation that is I think.
Well, you were one of the first, maybe second, countries that engaged in major seagoing activities.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think after the Portuguese.
Portuguese came first, yeah.
Right, Portuguese came first, and you were either second or third in this, right?
Yes. But what is striking for the difference between Portuguese and the Dutch in that time was this. And I found out that on Sri Lanka when I was on a vacation at some point. At the southwest point of Sri Lanka, there's a city which still has a Dutch Reformed church. But if you see it, it looks like a Portuguese Catholic church. And what the Sri Lankese people told us was, these Portuguese came here, the Dutch people kicked them out, And we were actually helping them because the Portuguese wanted to convert us to Catholicism.
Got it.
And the Dutch wanted to trade.
They wanted to pray, right? They didn't care about your religion.
No, they were already Protestant in that time.
Right. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, they were not Catholic.
Are they Calvinist?
Calvinist, yeah, sort of. Yeah.
Sort of. I know it's a broad term.
Yeah, but I think Calvinism is important to understand the Dutch culture also in the 19th and the 20th century.
Yeah.
So yes, in the 19th century, a lot of stuff which was developed in England, like steam engine and stuff like that, came early on also in the Netherlands. So industry was developed, paper industry, textile industry, and so on. So that was also early. Then I think in the 20th century, so I don't know exactly when you did that research, but I know that when I was a PhD student, so that was in the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, there was a lot of complaining about the amount of entrepreneurship in the Netherlands.
Yes.
By the ministry.
Right.
And from 2010 on, it became a lot different.
Yes.
And in the first instance, that was maybe still not so entrepreneurial actually, but it was a self-employed people who used to have a job were actually asked to become self-employed and to do the same job.
Yeah.
By now in the institutions that's forbidden. If it's a job, it's a job, and you have to be as in salary service.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the organization who's hiring you as an entrepreneur gets trouble, and you get trouble. So
So anyway,
now so the percentage is going down again, but it's higher than it used to be. So it's now around 10% of the labor force is in entrepreneurial activity. Earlier, like what you have in the Global Entrepreneurship Index.
Yeah.
And it used to be, when they were complaining, it was 6, 7, 8%, something like that. So in that sense, the Netherlands is not very entrepreneurial as a population, but it changed over time.
Yeah.
And I think in my observation also at the universities where I worked, so University of Twente, University of Groningen, the population in the Netherlands changed in general, but also the student population, so it became more international.
Yes.
And those international people, you could say the refugees, for example, from Vietnam. We had quite a bit of them.
Yeah.
None of them used the social welfare system. It was very extensive in that time in the Netherlands. They all started companies.
Yeah.
Almost all. So that was an example also for other people. And that took time, but now you see that Netherlands is relatively entrepreneurial, I would say.
There were some economic reforms, weren't there?
Yes.
Changing hiring, firing.
Yes.
Other things.
Yeah. So in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, the trend was the other way around.
Right.
So hiring was easy, firing was difficult.
Yeah.
And so, but that was more or less the time that the Socialist Party was also more or less often in the government. And they were creating this welfare state. This was a reaction to the period before that, where it was less. And because of we became more affluent.
That's right.
Could afford it. And so there was a very solid, I say that, net to catch people if something went wrong.
And
but that has changed now again.
These trends have also happened in Denmark and in the Scandinavian countries.
Yes.
So that whole Baltic region in general embraced entrepreneurship much more than it had in the 70s and early 80s.
Yes. I think you could say that the Anglo-Saxon model became more prevalent in the Netherlands, and I think also indeed in Sweden.
Yeah.
Norway, I'm not so sure. Denmark. But not in Germany, for example. At least it took much longer.
Yes, it took much longer, and there's still, the Germans have, I never quite know how to say it, but they have this model that is frozen in time, and they don't like to change it until they know what all the pieces will look like.
Yeah, that's Grundigheid, I think.
And in entrepreneurship, that doesn't really work.
No.
Because you need to sort of, if you're going to jump off the bridge, you got to close your eyes and just go.
Yeah.
and you can't figure out everything ahead of time.
But things are changing in Germany also on that aspect, certainly.
Yes.
And of course you have the Rhineland model,
right,
which has much more negotiation and stuff like that than the Anglo-Saxon model.
Yeah.
And I think the Netherlands is still, it's much more to Anglo-Saxon model now than it used to be. But there is also a movement of retreating a little of that because of the, let's say we had 15 years of liberal government.
Yeah.
And there are some backlashes there, which a lot of people don't like. There are, other issues. But on entrepreneurship, I think still the amount of population which are positive about entrepreneurship has went up and is still relatively good.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell me something about Groningen and entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Well, maybe I should start with Twente University, where I started, and I could talk about the program which I did develop on the request of the Rabobank, which is a large bank in the Netherlands, for a region just south of Twente, which is a quite rural area. And that was in 2000, approximately 2001. And they asked me, can you help us to stimulate entrepreneurship on the work floor? We mean that something really happens.
In the factories?
No, not in the factories.
Is it the work floor?
Just in that people really start doing stuff.
Oh, okay.
Why did they ask this? They were a member of a regional coordination body, which were municipalities, the province, banks, industry organizations. Not so many industries actually.
Yeah.
They were talking about how to stimulate, and they said we are financing that, but nothing happens. They just talk, and now we want to do something. So can you help us? How should we help people who want to become entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
So that was ESO, make it an ESO, Entrepreneurial Support Organization. They said, well, okay, let's have a look at that. So we developed, and they said the problem is a lot of people here are unemployed after 40, 45. And then at that time, it was difficult to get back to work.
Right.
Companies would not hire them.
Right. Companies wouldn't hire
for also insurance issues and whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So I said, okay, we do that. So we set up a program where we opened up for people in groups of 60 who would come. Because I had the idea, so I talked to a lot of people there, and we had the idea, if they want to come, it needs to be serious. So serious means that they are full-time.
Right.
So full-time entrepreneurs. So, okay. That also led to the fact that we wanted not only unemployed people, but we got more or less only unemployed people because they had the time. And we got only men.
No women came.
No women, almost not. Then we changed. We went to 3 days a week. And then suddenly it was 50-50. Women, men. So those programs really need to be fine-tuned on if you want to have a representative part of the population, so including women, then you need to take care that they actually can come.
I'm just going to interject there for a second.
Yeah.
I published this Global Entrepreneurship Index for years. And people used to say, why don't you put gender in there as a pillar?
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, we'll do that because there's huge interest in female entrepreneurship. And so, in index building, all the variables have to be positively correlated. When we put gender in there, that was negatively correlated.
Yes.
And it varied from continent to continent, right? There was high in Africa, 0 in the Middle East, mixed in Europe, almost non-existent in Japan, and we couldn't give an economic explanation.
No.
Yeah, so it
was a culture
very difficult. Anyway.
Yeah. So that was also in the Netherlands. Women still have more household roles than men. Yeah. And certainly when they have also kids.
Yeah.
Then although in the Netherlands now it's very normal that there are 2 incomes in every family in principle, but women more often work part-time than men.
Yeah. So the women had difficulty working full-time.
Exactly. So they could also not go to such a program full-time. But for 3 days a week they could.
They could do it.
So we worked on that, and we did this program in several places in rural areas in the Netherlands. And it showed that in a half-year time you can actually help people to build a mostly small company.
A small company,
a micro company, 2, 3, 4, 5 people working for them on average. And also with topics which I was often there when we were talking to people who were interested in topics where you think really like, is that a business? Like this is a really funny story. Some guy came to me and he said, I said, what would you want to do? Yeah, we are going to do special corpse transportations, dead people. Special dead people transportation. I thought this guy is hallucinating or something. But he said, yeah, no, I will explain. A burial process these days is for a segment in the market, an event to honor the person and to show off also why this person was important and stuff like that. And we are going to make special transportations. For example, if it's a rich farmer, then we have a very old classic tractor with a cart and we put the body on there. Or we have, we make other, we buy special things. He said, until now, most people go to the graveyard, buy a Mercedes, or a long Chevrolet. And that's boring, so we do something else. I said, okay, so you are going to be an undertaker. He said, no. I'm going to do the service for other undertakers.
Right.
I don't want to compete with these people. I want to give them a service.
Yeah.
So that company became the largest company from that program, with 60 people working in there within 3 years' time. They invested, I don't know how many million in all kind of stuff, and it's still an ongoing company which is doing well.
You know, I'm going to tell a funny story related to this. There was a Jewish couple, they go to Israel, first time, visit, blah, 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 blah. The lady dies.
Over there?
Over there,
oh,
right?
Wow.
So we're talking to the rabbi and everything, and funeral service people, and they said, well, look, we got two choices. We could bury your wife here, cost you almost nothing. Or you can fly her back to New York City. It's going to cost you thousands of dollars. It's expensive. We recommend you do it here. Guy thinks about it. He goes, we'll do it in New York. Rabbi says, why would you want to do it in New York, spend all that money? He says, there was some guy here 2,000 years ago. He died, they buried him, and he came back from the dead.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one. It's so funny.
That's a good one. Well, anyway, so this program worked pretty well. And I designed it also using the theories which I usually use in my research. This is principally based on social system theory. Taco Parsons, so old-fashioned theory, which I modernized and dynamized actually. Anthony Giddens, who made the structuration theory, he had criticism on the social system theory for not being dynamic enough. And in the research which was done in the structural functionalism in that time, in 1960s and beginning 70s, he was right. But the theory itself actually allows very easily a dynamic way of approaching it. And what is, I think, nicer on that theory than, for example, Giddens' theory and also Luhmann's theories, is that this is a dimensional theory of goal attainment, pattern maintenance of culture, strategy, culture, adaptation, economics, and integration between actors. That's social connections. So 4 dimensions, and that gives direction to the analysis more than what these more general only process studies do. So I use that also as a design for entrepreneurial development. And 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 that was the name of that program, was the first one. So it means successfully becoming your own boss. That was the first program I did that. The second program was in Twente at the university. And the University of Twente is an entrepreneurial university.
Right.
Still is the most entrepreneurial university in the Netherlands. Although Delft is now coming close. But anyway, they generated hundreds of companies, by now thousands. And but in that time, and now talking about 2006, 500. And a few of them were very big, like Booking.com. There was a company called 𝒆𝒚 which was bringing the food from a restaurant to the home, which is now Just Eat. The global company in principle. Just sold. The original founder sold his shares of that company. And Aard Groen actually same name as I have and no family. But anyway, so this guy set up that company, which became really big. And then the politicians asked me, we have 500 companies. Why are there only 2 or 3? There are a few more reasonably big ones. Why don't we have more of these big companies? We want more growth.
Yeah.
So I looked into that with the same theoretical model and talked with a lot of people, looked into, of those 500 companies, I had early stage business plans on 2 pages actually, analyzed those 500 and found out that in the very beginning, they were actually aiming at product production, scalable business.
Yeah.
However, within about a year where they had some coaching, they changed, almost all of them changed from that model to a consultancy model, R&D consultancy.
Mm-hmm.
So there are in Twente by now more than 500, there's more like 800, 900 companies, which are actually small, on average 5 people. Maybe now a bit more, I don't know exactly, but something like that, who are in between the university and other companies.
Mm-hmm.
And what they actually do, they translate. Some people call it tech transfer, but they really co-create new technologies towards businesses where these businesses pick it up and make.
So is it sort of tech transfer?
It's looked like it.
It looks like it.
Yeah. But then commercial. And with a huge amount.
Well, you know, one of the great ironies of university research, for years, where the whole 20th century was about the R&D laboratory,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, Philips must have one of the largest.
Yeah, certainly.
And other
Nobel Prize coming out of it.
That's right. And, you know, that model made sense. It's a commercial company. We have the R&D lab.
Yeah.
Right? Then the world changed, became complex, right? And universities increasingly took over basic and even applied research, and companies retreated from that.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason they retreated is that they couldn't figure out how to make things work. But here's what was interesting in my mind. The university is not a commercial entity in the sense, right, of a corporation. But here we are letting the universities do all this research now. We fund it. And then we want to have it end up in the commercial world, right? And then this led to the tech transfer, it led to commercial, big. And it was an incomplete, we never quite figured out how to make that work.
It's very difficult.
It's very difficult.
Yes.
Right, I know.
Because the research,
the
research is on another time scale.
Right.
It has other KPIs.
Yeah.
It's really different from business.
It's very, very interesting that how that should have worked, but it's difficult. And, you know, there was a lot of people opposed to that idea because they said universities shouldn't be in the money-making business.
Yeah, well, that's easy said.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Universities need money.
Let me ask you a different question. What do you think of complexity science?
I find it very interesting.
Well, it is interesting.
Yeah.
Is it relevant for entrepreneurship?
I think it might be. Yeah. But I've looked into it.
Yeah.
Several forms of it. Already when I was PhD student, so I looked at system theories.
Yeah.
I was working with this Talcott-Parsons system theory, which is
the reason I raised this is because it's complexity science is close to systems theory.
Sure,
right?
It is.
And networking is also part of this.
Sure. So you now see in AI, for example, that and the computing technology, that is complexity science based.
It's complexity science based.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So can we use that in a social setting?
Yeah.
To explain, maybe, to steer. Maybe complexity science actually learns us also that steering is very difficult.
Yeah. So, you know, here's what I know, and I don't understand this at all. I've never studied it. You know, in economics, we have cause and effect and behavior.
Yes.
Right. You're an agent.
Yeah.
There's incentives, you do things. We understand this. Of course, it doesn't deal with very complex things, right? Because they're individual agents.
Yes.
You get the complexity science, they can look at a big complex things with thousands or millions of variables, but they say nothing about behavior, right? They leave that out.
Yeah.
And then they argue that we can identify the structure and the behavior is not important. And
but
I've always found that difficult to swallow.
So I had a similar experience, but with a different theory. So I did a lot with network theory.
Yeah.
Network theory, you have in principle two kinds. The one which looks into the relations and into what's happening in that relations and try to explain. And then in business, for example, you see the IMP group, or you saw it, I don't know if it still exists, an International Marketing Purchasing Group with Hawkinson and those guys, Jeff Easton in England, working on very complex case studies, understanding collaborations between industries, usually, industrial, B2B marketing, purchasing, that kind of stuff, and international. Because they came mostly out of Sweden, and they said, well, all Swedish companies are international.
Yeah.
Because in Sweden there are only 10 million people, so you cannot make a big business.
Right.
IKEA could not live or Volvo, they could not live in Sweden.
Yeah.
So that is very interesting, and I was actually quite often at conferences of that group. But to translate what they were talking activities, actors, resources, but it stayed on a very abstract level and then immediately into a very concrete level.
Yeah.
And so I was searching, okay, what's in between? Then I met Ronald Byrd. Ronald Byrd was talking about structural network theory.
Yeah.
And actually he said exactly that, what you just said. He said, it's about the structure of the network. What's happening there is not interesting.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I like to know the structure, but I also like to know what's happening in there.
I know.
Later on, he changed his vision, but this was in 1988 or so.
Interesting.
And so I think it's interesting if complexities theories can be filled with some kind of content,
right?
Not only structure, then it becomes more interesting.
One of the underlying, I should say, premises of this institute is trying to use both complexity science and economic science and see if we can bridge those two to better understand a complicated world.
So my take on this is that already since I did my PhD, so I looked at Luhmann, I looked at Giddens, I looked at complexity science and autopoietic system theory or from biology, and I decided for me, this social system theory from Parsons is already multi-level, multidimensional, and over time. That's already quite complex.
That's quite complex.
But it has those four neat dimensions from which you can actually understand a lot, really understand content-wise. So I thought, for me, that's complex enough to address a lot of stuff. So the program in Twente, which I developed, was also based on that theory.
On that, interesting.
Looking at, okay, these guys, they lack what I and Bourdieu and I call cultural capital. That's one of the patent maintenance is filled with cultural capital. It also shows in such theory that strategic capital, cultural capital, social capital, and economic capital, it shows that there is not only economic capital.
Interesting.
Which I think is one of the problems of economic theory. It relies too much on only the money as a trade. And there are other stuff where you can trade in and where you can also better understand why agents behave as the agent they are. So that helped me to also see the problem of those guys, which were, they had 500 companies, they were small, they changed from ambitious to not so ambitious. And I asked them why, and they were telling, well, money was all gone, and we could actually make quite easily for a very nice hourly tariff this R&D, and we could actually work with the technology we like, and we could develop further where we have a PhD in, and we work actually with our former professor, and he also likes us because if we do this, we get EU programs, which also supports part of his program, so or her, and there we go. So you have a system starting to work.
Right.
And they knew nothing about business. They were unaware,
Right.
incompetent in business, unaware.
Exactly.
Even one of those guys at some point said to me, who wanted to scale up a already relatively big company, 30 people. He said to me, you know, Aard, I'm a nanotech PhD. I looked at the mathematics of business administration and my pen fell to the floor. So simple. So business, how can it be difficult?
I know.
I said, yeah, you're right. I said, but you know, when did you do the last Fourier analysis to do something managing your 30 people business?
Yeah.
And he looked at me, he said, never.
You know, the complicated thing in business is people.
Exactly. And strategies and marketing, and whatever. And so that's what I said to this guy, and he actually came into the program. And he did very well, actually, until he made a fight with the venture capitalist he got money from, and then he was out.
Well, thank you very much for that interview.
Yeah.
Fascinating thinking about entrepreneurship in the 21st century. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zoltán.